Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach, and apt that I follow my colleague Senator Joe O'Reilly and all of the work that, as he's noted, that was in terms of contributions made by himself, Senator Wall, when the three of us were attending many meetings back at the very start of this Shannon 4.5 years ago, online meetings during COVID with gambling support groups, pressing for the need for this piece of legislation. And it is to his credit that Minister Brown has stayed the course in compiling such a very detailed and very needed piece of legislation, and I commend you, Minister, in ensuring its passage and making sure it got to this stage, and I hope we see it passed and brought into law, because the pressing need for it is greater now more than ever. And all of the research that has been produced stating those who suffer from addictions are grossly understating the reality, not just here, but in the UK and in the States. And only last week, it was actually indicated in reports that were published and covered in the newspapers the impact of advertising on the young people of the country, and the fact that they accept it now as a norm in watching sport. What a very sad society that young people see the proliferation of gambling advertising as now being part of the norm of watching sporting activity. And why? Because that proliferation has been allowed to fester and to grow, in particular in the sport of soccer, and it is very, very regrettable and sad. What's even more regrettable has been the conduct of some members in both houses as acting as lobbyists for the industry, in trying to water down the legislation that you brought in trying to cajole and coerce their colleagues in putting in amendments to water it down. Shame on those members. I'd ask them to come to some of the gambling addiction meetings where I've seen people lose everything, not just money, family, businesses, homes, and they trying to, say, people in these houses, it's only a bit of fun, it's only a bit of sport, and trying to accuse you and those of us who would advocate for reform and the need for legislation as being a nanny state. Far from it. As I keep saying, it's a worse addiction than drugs, alcohol, anything. And when I see the size of the amendment booklet, it nearly fills me with despair, but I know that you, Minister, in making sure that this will ensure its passage through, have stayed the course. And I welcome any debate, robust debate that we have in these houses to make sure that what you put through does not have unintended consequences, that makes sure that we are not impeding on those who can gamble responsibly and enjoy it. And I have said before, I'm the worst punter in Ireland, and that's my choice if I wish to put a bet on. But the manner in which an industry which has not been reformed in decades has been able to use new media tools to target susceptible people is just wrong. It's just wrong. And what was even worse were the threats then made by those in particular in the horse racing industry to say that that industry would collapse if your legislation went through the houses. Anything but. Anything but. But of course this was the threat made by those who control TV, whose income is dependent on the money of gambling companies. And if the HRI have found themselves with a business model that is completely supported by gambling money, that is their problem. That is their problem. They should put more effort into making sure those came through the turnstile rather than sitting on bar stools, putting money on horse racing. There is no one against the sport of horse racing, but I question those who have found themselves in hock to gambling companies who now fund them. That is a sad state of affairs. And it was sad to see many other sports follow suit as well. So I look forward to this debate tonight and tomorrow as we go through the amendments. And I want to pay tribute to those members who did not bend the knee to those who phoned them or emailed them to do so. And I pay tribute to you, Minister, for standing resolutely against some of the nonsense that was spoken about. And I also want to make a point. And I say this as someone who has worked a long time in the media industry as well. It was pitiful to see some of the tabloid papers in this country use their front pages to say that horse racing industry could collapse because of this legislation. And they did it because they too are in hock to the advertising money of the bookies, because it funds them, because their business model is broken too. And so the multi-billion euro gambling industry is now the oxygen machine for so many things, profiting off the back of those susceptible people. And it was wrong. The media can be well done coming in here saying when we're wrong. What I'm saying to those tabloid papers that ran those front pages, shame on you. You have no scruples. None. And you did it because you're in hock to the bookies for your ad money on the racing supplements, and that needs to be called out as well. And I look forward to the rest of the debate. Well done, Minister.
Thank you, Senator.